שמע שיר חדש
Okay, welcome everyone. Baruch Hashem. I am back from a quick joint to Kivrei Tzadikim in Eastern Europe, where I was able to experience Baruch Hashem to daven. We dodged the ICBMs and we made it there safely, Baruch Hashem. And just to know that I'll bring you in this year an insight that I got on this most recent trip, which I think should help us as we navigate one of the most puzzling and troubling periods that we've probably seen in our adult lives. What do I mean? So what is going on as we take a look at the world around us from the lens of the Parsha, always from the lens of the Parsha. If we really want to understand what's going on, we have to look into the Torah and understand the Ramazim, the messages, what Hashem is telling us. So number one, in Montreal, Canada, which is a beautiful city. I have mishpacha that comes from there. Pristine, beautiful, well-maintained, one of the just nicest cities other than the snow and cold weather. Hitpartsa, it turned into a complete lawless, how shall I say, near pogrom. The city spun out of control, organized by, quote unquote, supporters of Gaza, and as well as anti-NATO, whatever that means, pro-Russian. This is strange things. It's hard to understand exactly who's behind all of this, but it's the idea of wrecking law and order. That's the bottom line. Lawlessness, recklessness, and destruction of anything that would hold boundaries, right? No boundaries. I can break your property. I can smash your property. I can intimidate you. I can burn your cars down. And what's most troubling, in my personal opinion, was that they burnt Bibi Netanyahu in effigy. Now, that's the first time that I heard something like that. And they were yelling for burn the Jews and echoing the taunts of the Holocaust itself by saying, final solution, burn the Jews. Final solution, burn the Jews. Now, this is already a level that we just haven't seen. And of course, at the time, the leader of that great country, Canada, who probably would agree to arrest Netanyahu if he stepped foot there, was having a party of some kind, a music party, and while his city burned. This is exactly the recklessness, the lawlessness, the chaos that is represented by this era, and it's focused on Gaza, essentially. Gaza is the makor of this, and secondarily, Lebanon. And of course, we know behind it is Melech Paras and all the funders of various kinds. Secondly, we had the brutal news of the murder of Rabbi Kogan, Zechitzak Debrocha, literally like Kiddush Hashem, a shaliach in Emirates, which was like one of the first countries to make some sort of shalom in the most recent times under the first Trump administration, called the Abraham Accords. Now, they're called the Abraham Accords because Avram, of course, was father of also Yitzhak and Ishmael, and that worked out well. Ultimately, Ishmael does tshuva and makes peace with the fact that Yitzhak is preeminent. And I've said this previously. I want to repeat this because it's such an important thing. This murder was to disrupt the peace that was emerging between Ishmael and us, and Yaacov, the Bnei Yitzchak. What is that peace about? What are these Abraham Accords? What exactly happened here? All of a sudden, they turn their hearts and minds towards Israel, mostly because they're afraid of Iran. This is true, not of any great love. But Yishmael does tshuva according to Chazal, allowing Yitzchak to precede him in the burial of Avram Avinu. And Yitzchak's understanding that he came to do tshuva to such an extent that even Hagar, his mother, who really held out the hope that Yishmael should be an equal partner, if not a superior partner, to Yitzchak in the land of Israel, she also becomes Keturah. She does tshuva. Incense is a sign of tshuva. Incense is purification. It's between Maves and Chayim. We know that Avram took the Ketores and he stood in the plague of Shimon, of Shevet Shimon, Nasi of Shimon, who did a terrible act of arayos by bringing the Benos Midian and to sin with the Jewish people, right? That act of the 24,000 that would die from Shevet Shimon, Aaron took the Torah to stand between the Chaim and the Mesim. Chazal tell us that he literally took the Malach HaMavis and forced him to come back to Moshe Rabbeinu to admit that he had to be subservient to Moshe Rabbeinu. That means the Malach HaMavis was chained, literally, and had to stop. The reckless abandon of Gaza is an example of the koach of Maves to be unleashed in all of its force. Maves in a physical sense, Maves in an emotional sense, Maves in degradation, abuse, etc. That's pirtzas malach hamavis. The only way you can get it under control is with Maisa Ketores. Ketores, of course, is the ki avoda of Yom Kippurim. The Jewish people lead the way back in tshuva, always set the example of tshuva for all nations. And Avram took back Keturah. What tshuva did she perform exactly? And what tshuva did Yishmael perform? So obviously, they must have done tshuva, seems to me obvious, from what they did wrong. What they did wrong was that Yitzchak was being subject. Yitzchak was being subject to attacks. Guess what kind of attacks? Rocket attacks, missile attacks, bow and arrow attacks. We know that Yishmael ends up being a rovek kashat. His expert is shooting bows and arrows. He was left 2 arrow shots away by his mother Hagar. Arrow shots represent the desire to kill from a distance. It's a sudden death. It's a cowardly death, because the murderer is not present, is not battling you. You don't have a fair chance at winning the hand-to-hand combat. And this is what when he's allowed to, the Bnei Ishmael will do, until they're influenced by Avram, who is the inyan of the Beris of Eretz Yisrael with Am Yisrael. Once they, Bnei Ishmael, who have a connection to Bris Milah, right? Because Avram did a full Bris Milah on Yishmael, and that's their claim to Eretz Yisrael. As I'll also tell us that they petitioned to have the land of Israel back after the Churban Bayis Sheni, and that their petition was granted for 1,000 years. 1,000 years. And that 1,000 years terminated approximately 1948 or 1967, based on the sources. But if the bris of Avram Avinu with Eretz Yisrael and for Yitzhak is preeminent, then Yishmael will be blessed. So the tshuva that Yishmael and Hagar did was to relinquish their claim on Eretz Yisrael, to relinquish their claim to the Yerushas Avram Avinu, not in total, because Yerushas Avram Avinu is a wide spectrum. It's actually the entire Mesopotamic basin. The Yerusha of Avram Avinu includes Eretz Keni, Knizi, Kadmoni, which are currently Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. This all belongs to us, but only in the future. Right now, the Yerusha of Am Yisrael, that's from the kibush of Yoshua, Moshe Rabbeinu, was sanctioned by Moshe Rabbeinu. Later, David and Shlomo would expand it a bit, but was contained to Eretz Yisrael proper, ideally on this side of the Yarden, but it also, because of Mechemes Og Sichon, included areas that were really from the future that we were able to capture early. But in any case, ceding the dominance of Eretz Yisrael to Am Yisrael is not only an act of territorial compromise, it's called Hachna'ah. Canaan, Rabbi Glazer points out, is osios Hachna'ah, acceptance. How shall I say? Hachna'ah means submission. Submitting to the truth that there's a Torah, that there's the Ratzon of Hashem to make a bris with Avraham Avinu, who is the hope for mankind after 20 generations, and to follow his lead. By following his lead doesn't mean to decimate Am Yisrael, where Avram's true hope is centered. And in that central territory known as Eretz Yisrael. Once they agree to that hachna, then Canaan goes away. Canaan and the Plishtim disappear, and they're called hachna'ah. So when the Bnei Ishmael do that, then the Plishtim and Canaanim, who are, and of course Amalek, are arch foes. But Amalek stays out of Eretz Yisrael proper. Amalek's battle with us is essentially in Chutz La'aretz. If you notice, the Holocaust was in Chutz La'aretz. If you notice, the Mechemes Amalek was in Chutz La'aretz in times of Yeshua. Their battle with us is much more centered around preventing Am Yisrael from even physically being alive so that they can zoche to enter Eretz Yisrael. Theirs is the battle with Mashiach ben Yosef, whose job is to return Am Yisrael. But once we get here, a different problem emerges. And that's, of course, the competition with Ishmael, but also the special competition with Plishtim and the Canaanim who are intertwined. And let me explain what that means. So Yishmael's tshuva was when he was willing to say that the bracha that he received and the answer to his prayers was Ba'asher Hu Sham. Yishmael's blessing, which is vast. The Torah records a blessing for him that have a multitude. He will be para Adam. I don't know why that's a blessing. I was bothering me and understanding why Hashem promised Hagar a nation that would be para Adam. But if you look at Rashi and the Mefarshim there, it indicates that he'll be very needed. He'll be very intertwined. In other words, the world will be very, very interested, and whether they like it or not, they're going to be dependent on their problems. Does that sound familiar? The whole world seems to be interested in solving the problems of the Palestinians. Gaza, untold amounts of money, and if it's Lebanon and they're up there, then the allies of Gaza, then they'll feed them too, airlift millions and billions of dollars, try to build doomed ports. Remember when America under Biden just recently tried to build a port of entry to feed the Gazans and washed away, thank God, like 10 times, only blew about $50 million. No, I mean, 50, I think, is a little bit. And it was washed, Baruch Hashem, by Hashem into the sea. Why do they want to feed them so much? Why do they even care? Well, that's part of the nevuah about Yishmael to begin with. Yishmael, who marries a girl from Mitzrayim, becomes intertwined, therefore, with Eretz Cham, which is the Canaanite nation. So actually, if you want to understand it, the Yishmael is the, how shall I say, a arbiter or a, it's almost like the relationship, so to speak, it's a sponsor. It's like a sponsor of the inner terror in Eretz Yisrael. They are, and certainly they are. I already made a bracha on this coast. So, Plishtim and Canaanim, how did they get intertwined? And what does Yishmael have to do with them? Well, the Yishmael's understanding of Basher Husham, that his bracha is dependent on observing the bris of Avram. Bris of Avram is what we're talking about now. The Abraham Accords. Why did they kill that poor Chabad rabbi, Rabbi Kogan, who's, I think that's the nephew of Holtzberg? Is that what he is? It's unbelievable. The one who was killed in India, right?
His wife, I believe, was the niece.
His wife is in. Do you believe this? I mean, it shows it's the same concept to disturb the ongoing rapprochement between Yishmael and Yisrael. That's what it's for. Interesting how Chabad is central to that process, because Chabad, for whatever your connection or affiliation about Chabad, one has to recognize that their work is to promote Achdus Yisrael and reach by connecting every single Jew to Torah mitzvahs wherever they are. That's a concept of Achdus, and Achdus happens to be our personal power against the Plishtim. Why is that? Plishtim are invaders. They don't respect boundaries. They came from the islands in the Mediterranean, and they washed ashore in Aza, primarily Aza. There are 5 Sarnei Plishtim. Their names are Azati is number 1. So you see that their number 1 settlement, so to speak, was Aza. And then Ashdod, Ashkeloni, Giti, Ekroni. I don't know if there's a city named Ekron. That's a big city in Israel, but Aza was, Ashdod certainly is, Ashkelon is. We know that that entire region along the Yam has been hotly contested since before Yetzias Mitzrayim. So what happened is that the tribes associated more with Mitzrayim, including all of the Canaanim and all the Plishtim who come from Ham, invade the land of Israel and take it over. So they are the ones at war with Shem, who is of course, the Rebbe of Avram Avinu, and Aver in this week's parsha we find out is the Rebbe of Yaakov Avinu, which is very interesting because Shem must have passed away. That's why they say that Yaakov only went to learn by Aver. It doesn't say he went to learn by Shem. Okay? When Yishmael originally accepts Bashir Husham, and then Hagar does tshuva, and she says, Bashir Husham, I'm willing to come back to Avram Avinu. And why does Avram Avinu take her back? Did you ever think about this question? Did you ever think about this question? Why was Hagar so interesting to Avram that he brought her back? What for? What did he need her for? You don't think Sarah's turning over in her grave in Maros Machpelah, that Hagar is back in the oil of Avram? Like, what's going on over here? Even a simple person would and should respect the fact, don't marry your wife's mortal enemy after she passes. What kind of business is that? Respect. Show a little respect to Sarah. No, that's not what it's all about. It was respect to Sarah. Let me explain. By Keturah admitting Hachnoah, accepting that her claims to Israel literally went up into smoke. By the way, Keturah is a fire. You have to understand what the Yishmaelim and the Mitzrim who are intertwined with them and create Canaanim and Pelishtim, what they do is fire. They send flaming arrows. That's exactly what they know how to do. Keturah is a fire. Elamah, the fire is used in Avodas Hashem. We turn that flame. They're kulo esh. I saw a video of this unfortunate person. He looked skinny, looked like he was very beat up. And he said he was standing in ruins, either in Lebanon or Gaza, I don't remember. And he said, I would strap a bomb to my baby. I would strap a bomb to my mother-in-law. Maybe that's not surprising. I would strap a bomb to my mother and shoot her at Israel. Are you crazy? Crazy. Because they want to be in a fire. They are living Akedas Yitzchak Mevchinas the Eish. The Eish that never went onto the Akedah. There was no Eish on the Akedah. There never was. Maybe until they brought the Ayel. Their whole Inyan is Eish because Eish has no boundaries. Eish walks, Eish goes, it damages as it goes. It just invades property after property. You put a big fence in front of a shore, he can't go anywhere. You put a big fence around a Goslin, Geneva, he's not going anywhere. You put a dam against water, it's not going anywhere. You put all that against fire, nothing, it'll take it over in a moment. Plishtim, actually, there is a shin in there, okay? Palestinians, as they call them, has esh, is lashon esh. That's what they'll do. They fire. They know how to fire weapons. And they want to bring everything into flames. They burnt an effigy of Netanyahu, right? The supporters of Gaza. They want to burn the Jews. They want to burn us. They want to burn us. It's very simple. That is their rage. But when you cool that down and you turn it into Keturah, which is, no, I'll serve Hashem, but in a boundaried way. I'll pray. I'll be hospitable. I'll make peace, right? I'll interact with the world in peaceful ways. Well, then they get this awesome bracha, billions of them with billions and billions of dollars sitting under their tents. They don't have, now high rises, they don't have to do a thing. They have enormous blessing. They have enormous koach tefillah. and they're tsanua, at least superficially. And unfortunately, that shows that they're holding on to some element of the bris. Bris is tefillah, bris is tznius. When you hold on to those things, your claims for Eretz Yisrael become more valid. More valid. When you reject Hashem, I saw, unfortunately, I have to report this, and it should change. As a general was sitting and being interviewed on one of the Israeli stations, and was talking about the Chatufim, the hostages, and the woman who was interviewing said, Bezrat Hashem will get them back. Like Ben Netanyahu has been saying, Bezrat Hashem, introducing Hashem into the equation. His Hashpah, his Yeshua, Tfilos to Hashem as key, Tshuva to Hashem as key. So he says, what does Hashem have to do with anything? What does Hashem have to do with the Chatufim? What does it mean? What's it all about? It's nothing to do with Hashem. There was no Hashem. And this went on Israeli television, and she was like shocked. And then she came back at him, and he started attacking her. Oh my goodness. No. You want Eretz Yisrael, you must at least respect the bris. Respect it. Act with tzniut, modesty, hachna'ah. Your machniya, your yetzer hara. Canaan is the opposite of that. Canaan is full-on yetzer hara. That we saw October 7th. Anything you want to do, no matter how brutal, no matter how rude, no matter how dehumanizing, but we can understand and see our way through that this is a disturbance even against Yishmael itself. So when Yishmael and Keturah do tshuva, they're welcomed back by Avram Avinu. Why? Why would Avram do that? Why? And the answer is very simple. Because Sarah never had a problem with Hagar as long as she was nichna to her, right? Remember, the Malach tells her, go back and, you should have inui tachas gvirte. You have to be nichna. If you'll be nichna, then you can have children all you want. They're part of the big Abrahamic tent, and you'll have tremendous bracha. Sarah didn't have an objection to that, but tonight that she was nichna. But tonight, ba'asher husham in chutz la'aretz. So of course Avram brings them back, because now it affirms everything that Sarah wanted. Sarah wanted them to be nichna, and by taking them back and reinforcing it for all time, by remarrying her and demonstrating the hachna'ah, and furthermore, look, if you want to remarry Keturah, very nice. Why are you kicking the kids out and sending them to Eretz Kedem for? Is that nice? Let's imagine you take in a wife, and she has a bunch of kids, and you send them away to boarding school in China. Is that nice? Is that nice to send your new kids, your new family away and give them a shame tuma, which means, according to Chazal, an ability to protect yourself from harm? That's what it really was. All the forces of the East, all the witchcraft and sorcery he gave me, says, don't worry, I'm going to give you something to protect yourself so you'll stay alive. But to Yitzchak, he gives the bracha, the ability to bless. Okay? The ability, Heyeh bracha, went over to Yitzchak. What does that mean? The difference is Yitzchak can be a force of bracha. If they will accept hachna'ah, they will be blessed and they will be secured, but they will not be the source of the blessing. They'll be the recipients of the blessing. And that's fine. Okay, so that's the difference. By sending away the B'nai Keturah, which, by the way, halacha is, this is, if you want to look in the Sefer Chinuch, if we could find a 100% pure Ben Keturah today, they would have to do bris milah at day 8. They're the only people in the world who, if you could identify a genetic Ben Keturah from the days of Hagar, has an obligation to do a bris milah at 8 days, lamrot, that they're B'nai Noach. That's the halacha. B'nai Keturah, but the problem is they got mixed up in the B'nai Yishmael who don't do a proper bris milah, just a partial bris milah, and therefore today we don't have anything. The Keturites have been mixed into the Ishmaelites, which makes sense, same mother, and that's the end of it. Okay, so what have we established so far? The main issue that we're seeing today is that the support of Aza, which is the name of the primary city of the Plishtim, who are intertwined with the Canaanim, who refuse to be nichna, like that guy says, I'll strap my baby with explosives. I'll strap my wife and my mother-in-law in explosives. He doesn't say anything about himself, by the way. He's still standing there. He's still alive. He just wants them to be shot at. He doesn't want to die himself. He has to keep fighting. And therefore, lawlessness in its essence is what support of Aza means. Now let's go one step deeper. We know that the sources of evil in this world were the two fallen angels known as, by the Medrash, as Aza and Uza. Aza and Uza protested the creation of man in the heavenly realm, and therefore they were cast downward. They lost their angelic quality and they kind of degraded into more humanoid. They weren't really fully human. They were hybrid between Malach and human, but they were able to reproduce. And they were the mentors of the progenitors of Ra, known as Bilam, Balak, Lavan. They were the ones who tutored Lavan. They were the ones who tutored Bilam and same Mishpacha in how the world can be manipulated for Ra. In other words, to curse. That's why Bilam is essentially the opposite of Avram Avinu, because Avram is V'hayei Bracha, and Bilam is Hayei Kalola. It's exactly what he is. He's equal in power, but for the opposite purpose. Not for a purpose of light, but a purpose of darkness. We know that Bilam had the Koach HaKlola. You follow? Avram Avinu gives Yitzchak the Koach HaBracha, and Bilam wants to use the power of Klola to destroy the world, to destroy everything that's good, to destroy the Koach HaTov, and particularly Am Yisrael, who's Hiyei Bracha. We are the source of the Bracha. And, okay, let's continue. So that's why it says in Pirkei Avos that the Talmidim of Avram Avinu are the opposites to the Talmidim of Bilam, right? What is the attributes of Avram Avinu? Ayin Tova, Ruach Nemucha, Nefesh Shefela. He forgives others. He likes others. He wants to help other people. Ayin Tova. Oh, they have a new car. God bless them. Wow, enjoy. They had a new grandchild. Oh, enjoy. They made a shidduch. Hey, that's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear it. Your daughter got married. Wow. You need the same thing? No, I'm so happy for you. I'll come dance at your chasana. And Ruach Nemucha is Hakna, is servile, a servile posture. I'm here to serve other people. The people who are most popular in the world that I've observed are people who are nichna. They give kavod to the people around them. And people love that. They love receiving a little bit of kavod from somebody that they admire. It makes them feel wonderful. That's what Avram was able to do. It's a bracha to be around such a person. It gives you strength, gives you confidence. Person is haughty and this and that. Who likes being around such a person? You know, it's like the joke. All right, we've been talking about me the last 20 minutes. So now let's stop that. And now you can talk about me for the next 20 minutes. that's, you know, they only want to hear about themselves. Ruach Nemucha, Nefesh Shefela. They don't have fancy taste. They don't need to be in luxury. They don't need their surroundings, and this is key, to make them feel good. They feel good despite their surroundings. This is a very, very important point. And this is the primary difference between Ra and Tov. Tov is, wherever I am, no matter how horrible it is, I will bring blessing, okay, to the world. I will be the agent of light. I will be a lamplighter. That's how the Rabbi described his Hasidim. Add light, you know, dark to the darkest places. But even Dubai or wherever it was. And then on the other hand, if you think that the world will bring you happiness in your internal darkness, then you're going to be very dark, because no matter how much fame, fortune, goods, merchandise, money, partners, whatever you want to call it, there will never be happiness, because if you need, it's because it's inside out. Because if you're looking for your surroundings to import simcha into you, it's only as good as long as the surroundings are cooperating. The surroundings have a way of not cooperating too much. What have you done for me lately? But if when you go up to a place, your job is to be masameach, you're the Talmido Shel Avram Avinu, What happens? What do we say about the Talmidim of Bilam? Yorshim Gehenim, v'yordim leber shachas. The Yerusha is Gehenim, and they also go down to Ber Shachas. Isn't that the same thing? Isn't Ber Shachas and Gehenim the same thing? The first over there in Pirkei Avos say, no, one is B'olam Hazeh, and one is Olam Haba. They're Gehenim now. The Yerusha is Gehenim. When you have a Yerusha, that means it's in your family. It's an inheritance. This is their Yerusha. This is what they're giving over, Gehenim. Do you know how difficult it is to probate a will? Do you know how much suffering there is when there's a Yerusha that goes, a big financial Yerusha goes down to families, and then this is things that where people don't speak to each other for lifetimes. It's very, very difficult. Yerusha is tricky. If you're going to give a Yerusha, be careful. Be careful. We're learning all about that now in Daf Yomi, Basra. Trying to give gifts away to other people who you don't want to be part of that Yerusha chain. Whether you can, whether you can't, on your deathbed. This is all things we're learning now, and as collectively as Daf Yomi, Basra, Kufnun Beis Gimel. So that's the Talmid of Shal Bilam Harasha. Okay, so Aza, if you understand this, is the Rebbe of evil, is the Rebbe of Bilam. That is crazy. That place, that makom, has a koach in it, which is called the koach of the plishtim. It's the koach ha-plishtim. They're polesh. They will advance. They will take over. And they represent Midas Hadin. But Ginsburg also points out in a sefer called Sod Plishtim that Pishtim is a word that is associated with the Plishti. What is that? What is Pishtim? Pishtim is one of the two things for shotness, right? It's linen. It's very hard, very hard. What is wool? Very soft. Wool is Midas Ha Rachamim. Pishtan is Midas Hadin. Very, very hard. You know where most of the Pishtan comes from? It says it in Mishnah Yuma that the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur, when he wore his simple white garments, he wore either Hinduim, Indian, I think it's Indian, or from Mitzrayim. Pishtin represents the Midas Hadin, pure white wool. Wool's fuzzy, nice, little shepsalach. You can't bring the two together because really, essentially, what you're saying is that there's neither din nor chesed. It's all one big irbuvia. It's one statement of kfira. Shatnez could be understood as kfira, in a sense. No, there's a bilbul of midas hadin and midas chesed. Let's keep the two things clear. We want to go from one to the other. So, unfortunately, the only thing that Aza can lead to is Azazel. Now, what is Azazel? Azazel is the place where we throw the Seir Hamishtalech, Seir, known as Esav, Seir, and we get rid of him. It's a symbol of the Yetzer Hara, as opposed to the Seir Lashem, where we turn that Midah towards Hashem. So you have basically two opposites. Essentially, the Seir Mishtalech symbolizes the termination of evil, the evil drive within us. So when we stand on Yom Kippur and we offer the Ketorah as right? Hagar is Keturah. You're saying, I'm going to use all of my koichos to serve Hashem, as opposed to I'm going to use all my koichos to serve my own personal needs. Okay? Now, all right. So if we want to understand that the ultimate decision of Yishmael will be for peace, now we understand why Melech Paras and Melech Arav are not getting along. Melech Paras refuses to accept Hachina'ah to anybody. He will not be Nichna to anyone. They are willing to stand up against the entire world and conquer. Look, Persia did conquer the vast, empire of the Greeks, and also, of Nebuchadnezzar. The Greeks were able to conquer them. but that was a whole different era. But they took on Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful force in the world. They were not intimidated. They were not intimidated. Paras literally means to spread over. Their Razan de Etra is paras, to spread everywhere. And that's what they want. They want their theology, their idea of domination, which is what? That Yishmael will be on top of everybody, including Israel, including Esau. So who are their main enemies? Their main enemies are Israel and America. It's very simple. It's just very, very simple. Why don't they say our main enemy is Singapore? Our main enemy is Moldova. It doesn't interest them. It really doesn't interest them. Two places interest them. The places where they have not been able to secure domination throughout the centuries. And that was the new Tkufa of Eretz Yisrael and also America. Not yet, although getting a little closer, a lot closer. Maybe under Trump, it will recede a bit. Okay, so now let's go a little further. Now let's talk about the king of the Plishtim, Avimelech. Last time, I pointed out to you that Avimelech was very different than Paro in his taking of Sarah. How is he different? Number one, he doesn't offer Sarah any money or Av any money. He just takes her, right? Two, Hashem comes to him in a dream and says to him, I know you're a big tzaddik, but, what's a big tzaddik? He took Avram's. What's the big tzaddik? Hashem came to him. I know that you did it. What was he doing it for? So leave her alone. What do you need? What do you need it? What do you need to start up with him for? What's the big tzaddik here? Three, he's considered the Gadol Hador. He's invited to the Bris Gamal of Yitzchak. What's he doing there? He's there with Shem Ever. I get that. The Rabbeim of Avram Avinu, right? Or the Talmid Chaver of Avram Avinu anyway, in Ever. And Avimelech? Avimelech, that menuvel? That lowlife? You're inviting to the Bris Gamal of Yitzchak? Yeah. You know why? Because Avimelech is the Plishti who has to be nichna to Yitzchak. You come to the bris, you come to the party, that means you're in. It's like Lahavdil Nebuch. The Jews went to the party of Achashverosh, they're in. They're supporting us. You come, Avimelech, to the Seuda of Yitzchak, and you testify that this man is going to be someone you're going to have to be subservient to. And yet, how does it pan out? The reason why Avimelech took Sarah with impunity, without offering a dime to Avram Avinu, is because he wanted to partner with Avram Avinu. He was bestowing upon him honor. That's what they say. The klipa of Plishtim that wants him to take over everybody else's thing is kavod. They want their kavod, and they don't care about your kavod. If you have respect for somebody, you don't take their stuff, you don't take their wives, you don't take their belongings, you don't take their lives, you don't take their kedusha, you just don't take. You have kavod for yenim. I have kavod for you. I have respect for you. Therefore, I'm not going to harm you. But Avimelech had the klipa of kavod. He says, I know, I'll marry Sarah, and that will be honoring Avram. You see, this is a twisted mind. I will honor Avram by the great joy of being his brother-in-law. I don't have to pay Avram a dime. I'm the one paying Avraham because it's his benefit that I am married. The king, the great king Abimelech, is going to be married to Sarah. Did you believe this? That's exactly what it was. And then Hashem says to him, I know that you think you're doing this great thing here, this great chesed by allowing Avram the privilege of being your brother-in-law, but it's not like that. This is an Ashes Ish. And then he goes and says, I would never do anything dishonorable, and he closes all his people together, and Avram Avinu has to say in the end, Rakiin Elokim b'makom hazeh. He says, yeah, I thought maybe there's some bad eggs. Avimelech says, no, we would never do such a thing, never do such a thing. And he comes running after Avram to Be'er Sheva. Okay, Be'er Sheva, which is in Eretz Plishtim, the pasuk says, and they make a bris. So it's already been established as Beersheba, or has it? It's Beersheba Eretz Plishtim. Get it? It's still Avimelech's, But Avram is tolerated to have the water rights. We will tolerate you. You can live in my land, says Avimelech to Avram Avinu. My land, you can live. It's still my land. I'll be the largesse. I will honor you with being here. Like the story of mostly of Jews in the Muslim lands. You better feel pretty lucky that we're going to keep you alive. You better feel pretty privileged that we're going to let you stay here without murdering you, which they did intermittently. Okay, some better, some worse. But always on the idea that it is us who's honoring you. We are honoring you by being dominant over you. What happens now with Yitzhak and Rivka? Parshas told us. Avimelech suddenly rears his ugly head again. And this time he comes for Rivka. He comes for Rivka, but he never takes her. He never takes her. He sees Yitzhak being mitzachek Rivka, right? And then what happens? So let's take a look at a few psukim. What happened here in Parshas Toldos? Why Avimelech made a bris with Avraham Avinu? Leave Yitzchak alone. I thought you said that you're going to have a bris between you. This is why the Abraham Accords are not worth the money they're written on, unfortunately, because, as we will see, Avimelech promptly cancels the agreement. The only reason why Avimelech made an agreement, because he knew he was doomed. Avram had proven to be so dominant by the very fact that he had all this success. Chazal tell us, the Medrash says, that he beat the four powerful kings, which were the world powers. He was able to miraculously find all this water. Miraculously, he was able to produce a child at this advanced age. Avimelech says, I'm done. I'm done. All right, Avram, you win this round. That's it. This year, we don't have a great team. This year, we're not going to win the Super Bowl. So I'll make a bris with you. Just be nice to me until I can regroup, until I can get strong again. Okay? Avram, I can't beat you. It's like Lahavdil. I heard this guy who was a big anti-Semite and he made a little film and he was talking to Gaza and he's talking to the Hezbollah and he said, Hamas and Hezbollah. He said, listen, guys, okay. I know you, I don't like Israel either, he said, and I know you're at war with them and stuff, but you have to admit, I mean, the beepers, come on, this time you got licked. Just take the loss. This is what he said to him. Just take the loss. Or sometimes, like in a chess game, you're losing so badly, you resign. That's it. You lost this round. They don't want to agree that they lost. This guy's yelling at them, saying, "You idiots! You got bludgeoned here. You're not winning. You're not winning. Your whole countries are getting destroyed. You're getting schooled. You're getting humiliated. You're being humiliated." Bell, we're still fighting. We're still fighting. We're still going to strap the bomb on grandma. It doesn't really matter. We're still going to fight because they're not nichna because of their cover. They can't be. That was Sinwar Yimach Shemo's tragic flaw. Couldn't be nichna. Cannot be nichna. That's the mistake, though. If they just be nichna. So now here comes Yitzchak again a famine, again forcing Yitzhak to go in the direction of Mitzrayim, right? So let's see what the pasuk says. And by the way, another problem here is that this jaunt to Mitzrayim seems to be out of chronological order. It appears to us after the birth of Yitzhak and of Yaakov and Esav, right? First they have Yaakov and Esav, and then he sells the Bechorah, and then all of a sudden, Parak Havav, they're going down to Mitzrayim. Excuse me, where are your adult children here? Where is they were both 15 5 minutes ago when Avram died and Yaakov was making the zid, and then all of a sudden, Parak Ted Vav, you're going down to Mitzrayim without them? Don't you think Esav could help you out a little bit, providing some security? Yeah, don't you think Yaakov maybe be helpful? It's a famine, Where were they? Where were Yitzhak and Yitzhak and Rivka were alone? If it's chronological, like the Ramban likes to do. According to Rashi, you say Ein Muktam Mucha B'Torah. You have to understand why the Torah mixed the order up chronologically. But let's assume, like the Ramban, that this is chronological. Where did Esav and Yaakov go? They were doing their thing. Remember, they were already 15. Yaakov was learning. He was learning and learning. He didn't leave the Ohel. he wouldn't leave Eretz Yisrael. He didn't need to leave Eretz Yisrael. He didn't even have a minute to learn Eretz Yisrael. He was just learning Torah, and that was enough. It was Yitzhak who had enterprise. It was Yitzhak who had possessions. It was Yitzhak who had a Yerusha and an empire to maintain. He had to consider the effects of the famine, which would wipe him out completely. And then when they get down to Mitzrayim, right? Hashem said, get down towards Mitzrayim. Hashem says, stop. Gur ba'aretz hazos ve'emach v'avarechacha kilecha ulizaracha eten es kol ha'artzos ha'el. All these lands in the plural. Which lands is he talking about? It's the bris of Avram. All the lands, the entire Yerushas Avram is going to be eventually yours. Artzos ha'kel, the many, many lands. Not just the biblical Yerusha of Am Yisrael, the whole thing. Now, Vayeshev Yitzhak Begrar, and then Avimelech looks at the Chalon, and he says, "V'hine Yitzhak mitzachik zrifa ishto vayikra Avimelech liYitzhak." He doesn't call the whole nation around like he did the first time around and make his whole speech. He just says, "Yitzhak, here's your wife, right? How did you do this? How dare you say she was my achot? And I almost did a big avera." And then he commands the nation, don't touch this woman. What happens now? What happens now? He thinks, Avimelech thinks that, okay, he's doing Yitzhak a favor, but it's his land. But what happens to Yitzhak? What happens to Yitzhak? All of a sudden, he starts to become incredibly wealthy, much more wealthy than Avimelech himself. Wait a minute. Usually this is how it goes. The person who's the king has most money, has all the money. Either his subjects who are loyal to them have it, or he has it himself. What does this mean, really? That in the land of Gerar, which is Eretz Plishtin, Yitzchak is now the ruler. Yitzchak is the ruler. If Yitzchak is a ruler, that's no good. So Avimelech says, get out. Get out. I never made the deal with Avram 100%. What do you mean? I thought you were nichna. What happened to the hachna? No. Lech mi manu, ki atzamta mimenu ma'od. Vayichan benachal Gerar. So Yitzhak moves just a little bit to the east. And he's also matzliach over there. So what do we see? Ma'im Chaim, and they come running. No, it's ours. Sovereignty. Now, these three be'er that they found there, Esek, Sitna, and Rehovot, represent Bais Rishon, Bais Sheni, Bais Shlishi. So this is an eternal battle with the Avimelechs of the world, with the Kochos of Aza, who say, no, it's ours, it's ours, it's ours, until finally they will admit and be Nichna, Rehovot, and it'll be wide open places. Notice like Rachav. Rachav was the one who was Nichna to Yehoshua, right? Rehovot. Till it'll be Hachana'am. All right? But we're far from that. And then all of a sudden, Avimelech goes into Nachal Gerar, right? He goes from Gerar to Nachal Gerar with his army chief named Picho, right? And he says, so Yitzchak says, what are you doing? Atem Sinesimasi, you don't want me around. She says, Ra'o Ra'inu, ki haya Hashem imach, v'nomar tihina Allah beinenu beinecha, b'nichvasa bris imach. He says, oh, I see, Yitzchak, you beat us this round too. Take the loss. Knock over the king. We can't beat you. I thought, Yitzchak, maybe you're just a nachschlepper. Avram was the one who beat the four kings. So you, Yitzchak, what did you ever do? You were almost slaughtered. You're not the all-magnificent Avram Avinu, but you proved me wrong. Mea Sharim means, by the way, that's where we get Mea Sharim from, 100-fold of what he estimated. 100-fold of what he estimated. And that's the source, by the way, according to the Rambam, a Rambam for Trumas and Maisros. You gave Meiser on the produce. That's what the Rambam says. This is the source of prosperity and the secret of Meiser being the key to prosperity by incorporating charity and giving a bracha to your acquisition of wealth. You're not acquiring wealth to acquire wealth. You're acquiring wealth to dispense wealth. Again, v'hayei bracha. I will be a conduit of wealth. Conduit of wealth. Not like you, Avimelech, who wants to just keep it. So what do you see? You see that Avimelech made a temporary bris with Avram. Any bris you're going to make with Palestinaim, Plishtim, past and present, will only be as good as if you are on the top of your game. If you're being matzliach. If you're being matzliach, we'll bow our heads. But if the minute you go down, we're out of here. That's the danger. And this is the raya. And this is the proof. And the reason why Yaakov and Esav weren't there is because this matter was not between the next generation. It was between Yitzchak and Avimelech. You understand? It had to sort itself out between the two of them. They are the prototypical Palestinians of the future. Everybody in the world today who is chanting free Gaza, right? Or from river to sea, they don't know it. They don't understand it. But they are speaking to the Wildkeit of Avimelech, Melech, Grar, and Plishtim, who cannot tolerate the success of another entity in Eretz Yisrael unless they are nichna. Once they're nichna, like Ishmael did, like Keturah did, they will be fine. I don't know if they can, but they're because a Palestinian, in his very essence, can only do it temporarily. Notice they'll sign an agreement for a few years. Oh, ceasefire, no problem, ceasefire. It's good for us. And this is the danger of the era that we're in, and this is what we have to daven for. We have to daven if foolish agreements are not entered into, which only allow these enemies to proliferate. We must daven that foolish agreements are not made to release terrorist murderers en masse. We must daven that the covenant of Klal Yisrael should remain intact, and that we should not be nichna to them. I have no idea why the hostage issue has not been resolved already. I don't know if anybody can give us a straight answer. If you have the intelligence to find buildings halfway up in Lebanon where there's sitting 12, who knows what kind of nondescript Hezbollah people, then you know where to find the hostages. Why is this not happening is a legitimate question. What's the motivation? I saw one hint from this fellow, Sebastian Gorka, who's now back on board as a terrorist advisor to President-elect Trump. He said, you know what the problem is? He says the Israeli generals don't want to win. They want to make a deal. Why do they want to make a deal? Could be for many reasons. Could be because they don't know what to do with it if they don't make a deal. Two, they might be personally very against the idea of Israel winning and holding and reconquering the territory. We don't know. Could be that they're not interested in having a victory for Netanyahu. All these things. Or it could be just misguided concept of what peace is all about. Whatever their motivations, whether good, bad, or indifferent, we are the problem. We have to daven that we stop being the problem. Because we certainly have enough problems on the outside. And I certainly believe that if this, I really think that America has a chance. I'm not saying it will happen. But there's a chance. There's a hisoirus of tshuva that's gone on in America, that they have redeemed themselves by choosing the side that does not openly violate Hashem's Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noah. They're more in consonance with this. You want to say the Judaic Lahavdil Christian ethic. At least it's there's this law, I think is it Texas, that you have to put the 10 Commandment in schools, and they're fighting against it. Is a law, that state law, put the 10 Commandments. They understand. People who are connected to the Bible understand that there's a moral code and that there's a creator. But here, unfortunately, our own generals and our own people, some of them are saying, what does Hashem have to do with this? What does Hashem have to do with anything? Who is Hashem to you? It's not up to you, it's up to us. We make the decisions. What they've done is that they then replaced Hashem with themselves. And ultimately, that is the nekuda of the question of the Talmidim Shel Avram versus the Talmidim of Bilam HaRasha. Bilam HaRasha is just, I'm going to curse people. Why? Because it's good for me. I'll make lots of money. I don't care. It's fine. Avinu says, I'll bless you and give away all my stuff. And I don't need a penny of your Sodom luxuries. Nothing. I just want to be a light. I want to be an agent of good, like poor Rabbi Kogan, and like his relative, poor Rabbi Holtzberg and wife, were murdered. So our prayer is, as always, that Klal Yisrael should be nitorer. The kochos that are within every Jew should be kindled, and we will overcome. We will overcome eventually the distorted conceptions and understand that making peace with Palestinians is a violation of the Bris Avraham. Period. End of story. Sadly, Avram tried. Avram tried. He thought that he could really convert Avimelech into one of the Gedolei Hador and bring him into the Bris of Yitzhak and say, see, as long as you're nichna, it's going to be okay, just like Yishmael, right? It's going to be good. It's going to be good. How long does that last? Avram Avinu maybe could do it because he couldn't even influence Esav to be good. Avinu could influence the biggest rush on the planet to do tshuva. They have a saying of Rabbi Nachman that there's a story about Rabbi Nachman. I mentioned this in Shir last month, that he used to play chess with the maskilim of Uman, who were very, very well educated. Some went on to be professors in Oxford, crazy, brilliant Jews who were complete atheists, who made an agreement that the name of God should never cross their lips, just like this unfortunate general. And he used to play chess with them. They called him Nachman. They kibitzed with him. They asked him, he would memorize books like Plato and Homer and be able to quote it back to them. And, Reb Nassan, his righteous, incredible Talmud, came into the room and would see this carrying on with the Maskilim, and he would literally have a heart attack. Rebbe, what are you doing? He goes, not for you. Not for you. I'm doing my work here. Rabbi Nachman says, I can work with these guys. You just stay in your base medrash. It's not for you. It's not your job. But what happened? The last year of Nachman's very brief life, this maskil, his name, I think it was named Hirsch Bear, is quoted in the farm in the books, the history books of Breslov and the stories. Came to daven with the Rebbe's last Rosh Hashanah. They rented a house because there were a bunch of people there. They had a few hundred people davening with the Rebbe. And his attendant, because he was extremely wealthy, came to him with his shaving kit. And he said, don't you want to shave? I mean, you need to shave. It's a holiday, right? So he sent back his shaving kit, razor, which was an Issa D'Oraisa. Sends it back and says, I'm going into the holiday with the stubble because of this rabbi. And then when he passed away, a few weeks later, the same fellow, a person who wouldn't mention the name of God, a person who had no regard for Torah mitzvahs whatsoever, was turned on by this young rabbi who could show him that he understands him, understands where he's coming from, but afal pichein, he connected to Hashem, and he started to draw him close. And when the Rebbe died, and there was really havoc because no one knew where the Rebbe wanted to be buried, and so on and so forth, he marched over to the Tamimus Dicker of Nassan, who held every word of the Rebbe, Bor Sid She'ena Ma'abed Tipa, who held the Rebbe's knowledge and essence in him, and said, where does the Rebbe want to be buried? He says, right here in Uman, in the with the Heidemark massacre victims, tens of thousands of Jews who all of them died al Kiddush Hashem. Not one converted to Christianity on the threat of death. I want to bury right here. And this man who was very wealthy bought the burial plots. And he bought one, and the wife of Rabbi Nachman bought one. And that's why there is a Rabbi Nachman tomb in Uman to go to. Because of this fellow who was, let's say, the almost Baal Tshuva, who was nichna to the Rebbe, to whatever extent he was able to be nichna. And because of him, we have the bracha today. There you go. So if you want to have a connection, if you want Jews to connect, you got to be a tzaddik. You got to bring the koach of the tzaddik. You're not going to bring Jews back to Torah mitzvos, right? Without sincere love and interest in doing good for them. If it's going to be us versus you and you versus us, that just further fractures the Jewish people and makes and strengthens the power of the Pishtan, the Midas Hadin. We are in a heavy, heavy, heavy Midas Hadin right now. The Midas Hadin is as strong as can get. Hopefully not any stronger. The judgment of the world, the ICC crazy orders, the riots in Montreal, the death in Dubai, the marches in Falapas trying to reclaim territory, what's going on internally in Eretz Yisrael here, no hostage returns, no victory, bombardments of 250, how much was 300 bombardments. There's a matuach midas hadin, and we need midas harachamim, and we have to call out to Hashem and say, please Hashem, we'll be machnia ourselves to each other, please be machnia the midas hadin, just like Aaron took the Ketoras and brought the Malachim Avos to Moshe and said, stop. That's what we need today. We need Indian of Ketoras, and Ketoras is known for having every type of spice, even the ones that don't smell good. Galbanum, one of the spices, is horrible smelling. You put it in, but all together, it works out. It smells good. Okay, so we should have a Maisa Ketoras, Kitura. Remember to send her children away to Eretz B'nai Kedem, but we'll keep the boundaries, but we'll keep the connection to each other, and that's how it's going to work out. Let's hope and pray that we see some substantial progress in the weeks ahead, and that the fighting that's going on right now and these acts of terror are the last, how shall I say, throes of death of these forces that are coming to an end. Mitzvah Hashem will establish shalom and bracha for Klal Yisrael and for the ganze Welt.
יש שם שיר חדש